Hannah Sillitoe. You might remember me from a YesStories event, oh my gosh, about 3 years ago now, when my best-selling book Radiant, Recipes to Heal Skin from Within had just been published. I was so excited to speak at the event because my story is not a traditional tale of big adventure, although I do love big adventures. But I hope in this crazy time, when we're all feeling a little bit off kilter, my journey does offer you some positivity and inspiration. My yes journey actually begins with me saying no. Now, I do have a tendency to babble on, and I'm aware that I've only got 5 minutes, so I will skip and jump and fast forward through certain parts of my story. First of all, let's take it back 6 years ago. I was sat in my doctor's office with this red, hot, scaly rash covering my skin. Now, this was nothing new. I'd struggled with acne, eczema and psoriasis ever since I was a teenager, but this was the very worst it had ever been. And the steroid creams, the coal tar shampoos, the greasy, thick emollients that I've been using for 2 decades just weren't touching it. And so I said to my GP, we need to look at something stronger. And he suggested a medication called methotrexate. Now, that's a chemotherapy drug. And if I ever needed a wake-up call, it was sitting in my doctor's office being advised that cancer medication is what was needed to get myself back on track again. I made the decision not to take that drug because, after all, this wasn't a cure. So this wasn't my doctor saying, take it for 2 weeks, your skin will be clear and that's it. This was going to be for life. It would put my skin into temporary remission. And what I couldn't understand was why we were talking about a suppressant medication. So my doctor explained this is because my immune system was overreacting, as it does in autoimmune illness. And so by dampening it down, we would see these benefits of the symptoms on the surface of my skin clearing. But I started doing my own research into curcumin, the active ingredient in turmeric, into, careful how you say it, shiitake mushrooms. And there are studies about their immune modulating properties. And my diet was pretty poor at this stage of my life. January, Christmas and New Year, lots of drink, lots of bad food choices. I just split up with my boyfriend, which made me drink even more, made me eat even more rubbish. And of course that cycle meant that I didn't want to go out and exercise. I really wasn't bothered about getting out in the fresh air. My skin was painful, I couldn't sleep. This awful, negative, vicious cycle just didn't seem to stop. I made the decision there and then, coming home from the doctors, that medication was not going to be for me. And so I significantly and dramatically changed my diet and lifestyle. And I vowed I would do this for a month. I'm a real all or nothing sort of person. And after 28 days, I went out in short sleeves for the first time in years. And nobody said anything. My skin was so clear that unless you were up close, you would never know that I'd suffered with psoriasis. And I got excited. This was like finding the world's best kept secret. No doctor had ever told me about it. And so I began sharing on Twitter, in an online blog, and gradually people from all around the world began reaching out. And I started emailing them the little PDF brochure that's still available on my website with a starting point to say, here's what I did. And they began following the plan, and they started sending me their before and after pictures, and slowly this built up momentum. And then I was approached by a publisher here in the UK, and we published my book Radiant, which has now sold 25,000 copies around the UK, something I'm incredibly proud of. We've also translated into Spanish, French and Hungarian. This is people all around the world finding empowerment and an answer to their skin. And so I also began looking simultaneously at not just what I was putting into my body, but the stuff I was applying on the surface, because for so long I'd been told to use these carcinogenic coal tar shampoos. I'd been suggested petroleum-based greasy emollients that were clogging my pores, and I started thinking much more consciously about what I should actually be applying to nourish my skin. And together with a local aromatherapist, we created a little kitchen table range. Then last year, I was invited to audition for Dragon's Den. And this was a game-changing moment for me. I'd applied the year before and I'd been rejected. All of a sudden I found myself back there. And eventually I appeared on the show. You guys in America know it as Shark Tank. And all 5 dragons offered investment in what is now my botanical natural skincare range. Cruelty-free, sustainable, everything I'm so passionate about, and everything that I wish I'd had available to me when I was really struggling with my skin. So I guess what I want to share with you is not just my own story of triumph over adversity, but if someone had told me back 6 years ago when I was sat in my doctor's office, this is where I'd be in 6 years' time, I would not have believed them in a million years. So I know things can feel a little bit off kilter. Perhaps you're not working in your regular employment at the moment. Maybe you are struggling financially. This too shall pass. Things shall change. I know we're all in this awful situation right now, but try to focus on the positives. Write that book. Share your story. Sometimes changing our lives and saying no to something can be the most important turning point in our yes story.